Okay, so this lecture goes along with your Manifest Destiny worksheet. There's a reading on one side, and then on the back there's like what looks like a coloring page that looks like this image. This is the color image, and so there's a little bit more in this picture that I'm going to talk about than is on your coloring page. But I wanted to let you know that this image is supposed to represent Manifest Destiny and the idea of Manifest Destiny. So I've picked out a couple parts of the image and we're going to talk about each of them as we go through this. And that should help you write your sentences about Manifest Destiny. So the first image I want to choose is this one. This is a picture of the Native Americans. So Manifest Destiny, let me back up. Manifest Destiny refers to this idea that Americans thought that God gave them the United States. They gave them North America, that God had given them North America, and that it was their divine or given by God right to have all the land from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific Ocean. And so they did whatever they could to expand westward. And so Manifest Destiny speaks to that concept. In the process, many things were disrupted. So now going back to Native Americans have been pushed off their land for years since colonies were created, and they continue to be pushed off their land. So the Native Americans keep getting pushed further west and further west and further west. And so in this image, you can kind of see them. They look like they're staring up at the image in the sky. He looks like he's a little bit ready to fight. There's a mom and a baby. And so this is just a depiction of who is fleeing or running away from Manifest Destiny and expansion. The next image I want to show you is these men. These men are supposed to represent miners. So during this time period, people moved west to California and Nevada to look for precious minerals. People moved to Nevada for gold, they moved to California for gold, the 49ers, and they moved to Nevada for silver. And so this is a pickaxe, this is a man on a horse, and they are moving west to try and make their money through mining. What actually happened is that most people did not make any money mining because it had all been mined. So by the time they figured out that they wanted to mine, they got on the trail and got there, there wasn't any gold or silver left. Next, I know this is kind of funny because her foot's in the way, but next you have this. This is a stagecoach, and so this is someone who's been hired to take these people west. This represents people who have a lot of money because they could pay someone to essentially guide them to the west. You've seen these in like Wells Fargo. They have a stagecoach image. They're associated with wealth and having lots of money. Okay, so this part of the image is like down into the left. These are farmers. So as the United States expands west, there's going to be a ton of farmland opened up. And so people move west in the hopes that they can farm and they can find land that is able to be farmed. The Midwest region of the United States, which is where a lot of these people are moving, is one of our biggest farming areas still today. Okay, so this is a covered wagon. The covered wagon to look familiar to you. Farmers used this, or people used this method to travel across the United States. So they would load up all their family belongings into this covered wagon and take it across the United States. There's a video game, there's an app, I believe there's a card game that talk about all the pleasant activities of being in a covered wagon, such as like dysentery, which is explosive diarrhea, just being sick, not having a bed. It was not comfortable traveling in a covered wagon to go across the United States. Next is buffalo, and I've lightened this image, but these are in on the left-hand side towards the top, close to the bottom of the mountains. So in addition to Native Americans being pushed off the land, buffalo and natural resources were also destroyed. Native Americans used buffalo, used all the buffalo, skin, fat, meat, bones, for themselves, and the Americans moving west just shot and killed the buffalo. They didn't know how to use the buffalo. And so you see the buffalo running away from the image because they are fleeing the Americans who are moving west. Okay, so I probably picked the worst picture of a train possible, but this is a railroad. And so this is one of the modes of transportation that is developed during this time. There are two pictures of a railroad in here, so choose whichever one you want. But the railroad going west meant that people could travel across the land quicker and easier. So instead of going in a covered wagon, you could get in a train and go west. Eventually, this will turn into refrigerated travel, and this expands greatly. But the railroad is a new mechanism and a new method of transportation for Americans at this time period. Okay, let's talk about this lady in the middle. This lady right here is supposed to represent Lady Liberty. She's supposed to represent the United States, and she looks like she's floating. She looks very angelic. She's in this white dress. She's in the middle of the picture. She's the biggest part of the picture. And she's supposed to represent the United States moving west. And with her, she's bringing progress. So I'm going to talk about the things she's holding in the next few slides, and then I will talk about her background. But just know that she is supposed to represent the United States. Okay, with the zoomed in image, you can see that this is a school book. A school book represents the education. So the citizens of the United States felt like as they moved west, they were bringing education to the people who lived in the west. They were going to civilize them, they were going to teach them, because Americans thought that their way was the best. They didn't realize that Native Americans had their own ways of doing things that worked as well. And so this book is supposed to symbolize progress and civilization and just bringing better things to the West. Okay, this image is focusing on this cord, which then goes down to these poles. And believe it or not, these are not telephone wires. This is a telegraph. So before their telephones, we had telegraphs. They had to use Morse code to communicate from one place to another. And so as everything else is moving west, this telegraph line is being put in and moving west as well. And here Lady Liberty has all the telegraph rope with her. And so that's what the rope in the middle of the picture represents. Off in the corner on the right-hand side, you see this log cabin. Log cabin is what frontiersmen lived in. They didn't build grandiose houses. Abraham Lincoln lived in a log cabin. When settlers moved west, they built something that was easy. They could throw it up, and it kept out what they needed to keep out. Okay, so in the image, in the upper right-hand corner-ish, you have this river, and this river is supposed to represent a canal. You also have bridges, and then you have boats, which are supposed to represent steamboats. So during this time period, there's a lot of innovation and technology surrounding waterways and the use of waterways. So canals connect two main areas of water to each other. There's a building of the Erie Canal, which connects the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean, and this makes transportation easier once again. Just like we had the railroad, we also have steam engines that are put into boats, and you get steamboats. And they use the water to propel a wheel to help them get up and down the river, and it makes transportation of farming goods easier up and down, specifically the Mississippi River. Okay. In the background of the image, you can't see this on your coloring page, but you can see it on the image that we started with. The right-hand corner, which is where America is settled, think of that as the east. It's bright. Here it looks like there's rays of sunshine. It's super bright. and bright and white is associated with positivity and good things. So all of this light and bright stuff is moving west, okay? In contrast, the west is dark, gloomy, snowy, cold, possibly rainy, right? So bad. So you have all this light and bright. You can see these light and bright clouds. You have all this light and bright moving west into this dark area. They're bringing all these good things. So Americans feel like they are doing the West a favor by bringing all of these good, positive things to them. The people and the things living in the West don't necessarily see it that way. So use this information and the information from the reading to complete the 6 sentences on your Manifest Destiny page.